All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So today we're talking about middle game techniques. So I teach a lot of 15 Qs to like 9Q, and I notice sometimes, they really miss the mark on, how to play in the middle game. So what the middle game boils down to me when I'm looking at this game is that I look for weak groups that I can manipulate. If I can't find any of my enemies' weak groups, I definitely look for my own as well. So if I have a weak group, then I defend. And if the everything's solid, if I look at the positions and like every group on the board is solid, the next thing I do is usually look for moyo lines, leaning attacks, split attacks, or good building moves to build up your moyo, or good invasions. And so these are all the kind of techniques that I look for. And I've kind of noticed, at least in my experience, I haven't found a lot of good materials to study the middle game. The attack and defense book in the James Davies series really helped me out. But other than that, like just strengthening how you attack, I couldn't really find other middle game books or a lot of resources. Just for example, to show, like this morning, I wanted to, or last night even, I wanted to look over some like middle game techniques and stuff. And like, I love the Young and Said League, so I was looking through these, and he goes over the opening, he goes over the end game, but out of his like I don't know 300 lectures, I couldn't find any that were labeled middle or middle game. And I'm sure he covers it with maybe another name or something, but it was just really hard for me to find materials that were like based on middle game techniques. So if any of you guys have any recommendations, it'd be cool to put them in the chat later. The only one that I really know other than the attack and defense is I feel like Sakata Io made out the middle book called The Middle Game, and I own it, but I haven't read it yet. So a lot of
Hmm.
these techniques are just from my own reviews and my own personal experiences. And YouTube seems to have like when obviously I typed in Go Game Middle Game, and Incente has one which I didn't have time to watch before this class, and I watched a little bit of this one, but I didn't find it as useful, unfortunately. No offense to Stephanie Yen. To be fair, I didn't get to finish it. So, but anyway, let's take a look at what I have as examples here. And once again, if you guys have good resources, let me know. But so the first thing, like I said, is to check for weak groups, and for your enemies and your own. In this game, we see white solid here, 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 and here. Black is solid on each group as well. So once we know that there's nothing that you can like really take a base or attack, or then I start looking for other things. When I first saw this game and Black played here, it didn't look right to me, right? Like this didn't feel like it was building a lot. It wasn't attacking anything. It wasn't leaning. It wasn't invading. And so my first instinct was to play something like this. And we can see that these two lines are like, or these two moyos are kind of intersecting. So, if white was to try and protect his moyo, then you could fan out and get more. So that was my first instinct. Later, I looked at the AI, and the AI suggested, better stuff. So let's talk about these, right? So the first thing the AI suggested was an invasion. The AI looked at this and said, "This is really big. I'm guessing bigger than what black can build, right? Like if we look at white's building and black's building, white could possibly make it bigger." And so the first thing the computer wants us to do is to invade. To invade, we look for weaknesses that we can find, like poking points, where you can peep. We could look at the moyo line, which is using the two goalposts to figure out a nice way to do a reduction. Or to invade, we can also use attachments. Um, this attachment here, you can see that if white tries to attack it, it's only going to make black stronger. And so if black plays lightly, even if he has to sacrifice these 3 stones, not that I'm saying this is the best play, but even if he does, you can
That's
see,
still a reduction. Yeah.
yeah, you can see black got a really good reduction slash invasion, right? By sacrificing these 3 stones. And if it doesn't go like this, and you think you can live, you can also just go right for a 2-space base. Although it is undercut and a little surrounded, so I'd feel a little more comfortable trying to play more lightly. So then this is one technique, is invading, which is very important. The other, the computer suggested, I believe it was like here, but that looks kind of deep. It's behind the moyo line, so just for, my own sake, I'll put it here. And so when we look, if white tries to defend his own territory, black is clearly reducing here and building his own. So something like this is pretty nice. The last technique, or actually it was the third recommended move by the computer, was to play this. So this was like, A, B, and then C was over here. But the last one is to build. So when you have, solid groups, that's when you want to look at these techniques. Invasions, you want to find weaknesses within the moyo and then harp on them, right? Like start pressing on them. If you can make more points than your opponent and you're gonna win if you just build faster, then building is very useful. And that was my first instinct. Sorry, it was here. That was my first instinct to build here. Like, find the intersecting lines where each of us could make a good move to build better. So something like this. And then the third is reductions. So this game had all 3, and I thought it was a good example. So next, we'll move on to the next game. So here, white played this. And when we look at this board, first off, we had this invasion here. So this was the last move. And this is a really good move because if black ignores it, then white's going to be able to split and make this weaker and make this weaker. And so black kind of has to respond here. It's almost like a really good sente move. And now we judge the board, right? Let's look at the board, right? First, I usually I'm more of an attacking person, so I look for my opponent's weaknesses before my own. But let's look at white's weaknesses first, right? If we were playing as the white player. So this is really solid. This isn't gonna die. This is really solid. This is pretty solid, and this is pretty solid. We have a stone here, but it's a throwaway stone, right? This is too close to thickness. If we ran it out, all we would do is create a problem for ourselves. So I wouldn't even worry about the stone at all. So every group here is solid for white. Now we look at blacks, right? We have black, a solid group here. This looks a lot more solid now that it's sealed white in. Same with these because they're so closely connected. And this looks pretty solid. But what's not is this, right? And so now what we can do is employ another technique, right? Instead, in the game, unfortunately, white played here, which is the wrong direction because it's pushing these weak stones into another weak group. And it actually helps black kind of make a sort of connection. And if these two groups connect, they're only going to get stronger. So this felt to me like the wrong direction. Instead, white should consider splitting. And this is where we incorporate what I call the splitting attack. If black tries to keep running out, white can keep harassing it. I'm not going to say these are the very best moves, but we can take a look here. So if black continues to try and run out and break out, you can see this group becomes significantly weaker. And so by splitting these two apart, you can get a good nice capture on one of them and maybe even revive this stone now to get this to work. The other way you could look at it is if, let's say black feels that these are getting weaker, right? And he doesn't want to give them up. So then he plays something like this or this and, tries and makes some large points here. Well, now you can play something like this or this to keep the attack up here. So when you can push two groups close together where they're almost like one move away from connecting, then the splitting attack is perfect because it's going to weaken both sides and it's going to cause a lot of pain for both players, for both sides. Black's going to be busy trying to make this live, and white can kind of make points on both sides while attacking. It's very good. But missing this opportunity was a big deal in this game, so it kind of made me sad when I watched it. And even now, so Jory at the time, I feel like had the idea, right? But then I guess he thought that they were connected, or maybe he thought these were dead. And so then he started building his own moyo. But remember, as long as you can find weakness, instead of building right away, I would consider continuing the attack. Because once you split here, even if you can't contain black, right? Because there's a lot of cuts and black can get out. But even if you can't contain black, the same concept applies, that once black comes out here, well, now you can damage the other group by keeping them split. So splitting attacks are very, very, very important. And this was a really good example of that one. Let's take a look at this game. This is Terry's game versus Jerry. They played this in the single digit Q class last week. So I didn't want to keep the review in, or the AI review, so you'd see the move, but maybe I'll keep it on anyway then. So when we looked at this game, we're once again looking for weak groups that you have, strong groups, and judge what you can attack and not attack, right? So if we look in white's perspective, this is invadable, but it's still really strong in my opinion. White is strong here and here and here. So white doesn't really have groups that it has to worry about that's weak. When we look at blacks, so if we're trying to find a group to attack, this is really strong. This is really strong. This is fairly strong. Obviously it doesn't have eyes, but with this thickness, it's I doubt white would be able to capture it. And then this is really strong. So every group is kind of secure. So this is the time where you go through your analytics, your techniques, to figure out what needs to be done here. And so you can't use any of the attacks right now, unfortunately. There's no splitting attacks. You could argue there's some peeps and weaknesses, so you can do some leaning, but same with like leaning on a group like this, because if black has to defend, you're leaning while building some moyo, but the moyo doesn't feel good because of this stone and this stone. So there's not really too much to build for moyo. There's not much to attack, but there is a very large group here, which the invasion becomes extremely important. So at this point of the game, I would definitely be counting, and you could judge that fairly everything's kind of even up except this area. This area is way too big. So it needs some type of invasion or reduction. And if you guys know about the enclosure here, the Shamari, usually attachments under it or on the side of it or shoulder hits are the key to like harassing this Shamari. So in this game, this looked like obviously the best one to me. The computer liked this one, but this was just a probe, and then later start working on other stuff. And probes are cool, but maybe I'm just not there yet. So I would rather prefer a nice invasion. So if we look here and we follow the computer's guidance, once white plays here, I couldn't find an easy way for black to kill white here. If it went like this, then you can see that white is alive. This Atari doesn't work, right? Because this is two eyes. This. Now, I didn't look at this fully, so maybe I should have. But this looks right. Yeah. Okay, so this is two eyes too. But yeah, well, so white looks like it gets kind of easy life here. If we go through some variations, instead of 4, maybe it would be Atari. You could come out like this, and you can again try some shenanigans like this. see. So it would go something like this, and might even cut through here, but either way, it's fine. Using the computer, fortunately, I guess it was good that I kept it up. But the idea still remains when it comes to the middle game that, you know, if everything's secure, then you got to look for, you know, you got to go through the hierarchy of good middle game techniques. Invasion was the most best technique that you could perform, I think, in this area at this time. Because if when black gets all this, black wins, which does happen, right? This is the turning
Michael,
point.
can I ask you a
Yep.
question?
Yeah.
I thought that Shimari was not invadable.
No, oh, yeah, it is. It can be invaded. Just especially with these stones not here, right? Like it's you can manipulate it quite a bit. You can attach under any of these attachments, the shoulder hit. Um, we can go over that another lesson maybe next
Okay.
week. I can prepare it more. But yeah, there's quite a lot of things you can actually do to manipulate this. Usually the idea is that even if it can like be manipulated, black's still gonna get a good result because white can't really get too much points here. But anyway, yeah. So let's move on to the next game. So this was with Adam and Scrappy. I almost feel like I remember this picture. I almost feel like I looked at this game before. Um, so I don't know. Did I look at this game, Adam, one of these weeks?
Is Scrappy the Scrappy that live streams?
I don't know. I think Adam did say his son was asleep,
That
so I
one is
guess.
Slappy, not Scrappy.
Oh. Well, anyway, let's take a look at
Slappy.
this game. Don't think you looked at
Oh,
it.
you're thinking of
Okay.
Get Flappy.
Oh, I'm confused then.
Okay. So let's look at this game and how this corresponds to the lesson. So I already have the move marked out, but let's talk about why I like this move a lot. So looking at the game, once again, we really got to look for what's solid and what's not, right? So I'm looking in black size on this one, and you know, black pretty much looks very secure almost everywhere. I don't see any weak groups that can be manipulated or a base taken away easily or anything of that nature. And when I look at white, this looks pretty secure, but there's a technique you can use on it. This looks really secure. This looks secure. And this is very questionable. The connections on this look way too far. And so now here comes the, you know, your abilities to learn these techniques. So for one, right away you can split. You can attempt to split. So if it goes like this, if white plays here, you can cut. And if white attacks you, he can't catch you. He can't catch you. You have too many liberties and because of this helper stone. If white plays like this, obviously he can't catch you either. So these two groups become cut. This becomes damaged, and this becomes floating. So this is a great cut. But let's take the skill up to the next level. So you see that you can cut this, but if you do it directly, like we just saw. If I can get it again. If we see it directly, then this still has some good eye shape in Sente. So it's still a, you know, somewhat okay, I guess you could call it, which is fine. But now, if we do what a proverb is called, one of the proverbs that I liked was if we attack in the east, then we can fight in the west better. So we make noise in the east to attack in the west. So first, you can set up this leaning attack. This is another technique we didn't really look at too much in these games. So if we lean here, white should protect itself because it doesn't want to get cut off, right? If it plays something else, these stones get cut off. So white should protect itself. Then you can hit on top. There's a wedge. and then black usually chooses which side it wants to save. So this one, there's 2 cutting points, so I'm gonna save this one, because if white takes this cut, you can manipulate this all the way until here. So now we have a nice black wall here, and next we can perform this cut. And let's look at it in another way. So last time we looked at this, let's look at this one. If we were to cut this way, this is still okay, right? There's not any issues here for connection for black. So you see that this group becomes cut off once again, and then black now has this really strong wall to use to attack it. So you can see the moyo became really huge by using a leaning attack and then a splitting or cutting attack here. So these are the techniques you really want to try and find in your games and use them well. When I first looked at these cuts, I saw these cuts and like I was able to figure it out where, you know, white couldn't really save itself here. But then I wanted to look deeper, and so I looked at a way to even make it better by first using a leaning attack. So this is some really high level stuff. Do you guys have any questions on like splitting, leaning, looking for strong and weak groups, things like that? No one? Everybody gets it? Okay. So I guess
the challenge for me is, you know, no 2 games are the same, right? So then in each game, just being able to apply the principles is my challenge. Like my brain knows what to do, but then doing it at the right time in the right way is the challenge.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I know Colossus talks about looking for strong and weak groups all the time, and that's the strategy you have to do. So if you can at least start doing that more often, like if you're always looking for strong and weak groups, and when you can't find any, like everything is strong on the board, that's when you start looking for these extra techniques. Hopefully that helps. But let's move on to the last game. So let's take a look at this game. So this last one we're talking about pretty much in a reduction or an invasion, if you would. So in the game, black played here, and to me this looks really, really deep. So it looks pretty dangerous for black. But to be fair, when I looked at this game, I thought that this move was very important because I saw a lot of points here. But this would be pretty heartbreaking. So the timing for the computer was definitely saying like this is the move here. So when it comes to invasions, we've talked about the moyo line. So this is kind of like the safety line. And if it's very wide like this, you can comfortably go a little behind that line. If it was tighter, if white, say, had a move like here or something, then I wouldn't really want to go too much further into that line. I'd probably want to skate the line. But here it feels very comfortable. And it kind of feels like no matter what way white attacks, black is going to start using like, you know, what do you call it? Contact or touching moves, right? And so no matter what way white tries to capture black here, white's going to be able to connect. I don't know why the word is failing me. Sabaki, yeah, you can make sabaki, but attachments, that's the word I always use. So attaching. So if you attach to your opponent, then you know the ways they attack you will make you stronger, right? As long as you're willing to give up a little to get a lot. But yeah, this was kind of like the last thing. I think once black played here, you know, white was able to get a severe attack on black, and in the game, you know, unfortunately, white could have done a lot better to attack these because this doesn't really have that good of a shape right now. Like you can manipulate it and you know make it. It's very difficult for it to make eyes this deep into the game, so it's a little better to come out. But yeah, those are the techniques. So remember, let's take a look. Remember, once everything's settled, you want to look for, um, count the game. Usually, you want to try and count the game as best you can. And if you judge that white is doing better than you, or you can't build faster than white, then you should look for invasions. To look for invasions, you look for weak opportunities to press on weak areas, and so then you can build something light and fast. So even if you sacrifice something, you can use it to your advantage. Same with something like this, an attachment here. We looked at how if white attacks it, black kind of just gets stronger. If it went like this, obviously, black can just kind of live, right? There wouldn't be a problem. If white takes the base, you can play like this. And if you're confident, you could try this. I would go a little lighter, but this is very specific, so I hope this helps playing lightly. Other techniques is to play, close to the moyo line to make big reductions. And the third one is to build your own moyo and press on theirs while you're building. What else we got? Split attacks. Those are really good. These are probably my favorite all-time thing to do in any Go game. If I can get a point where I get a weak group here and a weak group here, and I can just play one move that keeps them split and hurts them, it's my all-time favorite thing to do. So I don't know how many times you guys were able to perform this type of technique where they were about to connect and you cut them off, but man, it feels good. Once again, this was another invasion. I noticed a lot of the games that I went over were invasions, but that happens a lot because the big moyos start to form kind of quick in the game, right? And so you gotta invade those moyos before they get completely closed off and the game is over. This was a really nice example of both a leaning attack and then a splitting attack, and this was invasion. So I think we covered all the techniques. Was any of this new for you guys? I know usually when I ask you guys questions, it's pretty silent, but but
I've seen it before, but I had forgotten all of it because I read it when I was 18Q and I wasn't really absorbing anything that I was reading. So it was a really good reminder because I was not looking for that in any of my games.
Yeah, and the key is too, remember that these techniques all come into play once you're safe, right? You got to look for your group weaknesses. A lot of 20Q to even 9Q, they miss the mark and leave weak groups and then get attacked and ruined for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
Or
Claudius says defense first.
yeah, yeah. So remember, try and remember these examples of the games. Obviously, they're not going to be perfect in your games, but the techniques are still the same, right? We want to learn how to find moyo lines. We want to learn how to lean attack, split attack, make good building moves and make good invasions. And the timing on them are all different. So, this was the best example game, I think, when we looked at this, because these are all three good techniques and the timing for the computer were all different, right? This invasion was most important because there was a capable invasion here. So this would have been the best move to destroy white. The other, idea was this one, building while, white gets to build, you get to build. It's a nice, fun, peaceful game. But if white's going to win, then the invasion's more better. So I don't know. I would hope I explained that a little good, but yeah, these are really important techniques that, they're hard to grasp. People mess up with them all the time. So, all right, I'll end the class here. And if you guys want to play any games or you have any games you want me to review, I'll be here. So let me know.